Magic Tea House, Book Number 49, A Merlin Mission, Stallion by Starlight, by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 1, The Ring of Truth. I love looking at your notebook, Annie said. It helps me remember all of our adventures. She turned a few pages. Oh, polar bears in the Arctic. The cubs were so cute. And Pompeii and the volcano. Oh my gosh, remember Hercules? Yep, said Jack without looking up. It was a warm day in June. Jack and Dani were sitting on the front porch of their house. While Annie thumbed through his notebook, Jack was reading a book about giant pandas in China. Ooh, said Annie as she flipped through more pages. The ghost town in the Wild West, the invisible piano player, remember? Yep. Annie turned another page. Remember Australia? The baby kangaroo, the koala, the dingoes, the forest fire. Jack looked up. Yep, he said. Look, that's all cool, but I can't talk now. I'm trying to read the last page of my book. You're going to need a new notebook soon. This one is almost full. Annie closed the notebook and put it into Jack's backpack. She stretched. I think I'll go for a bike ride, she said. Maybe stop by the library. Go to the pool. Jack closed his book. Done, he said. Now I need something new to read. I'll ride to the library with you. As he pulled on his backpack, Jack caught sight of something out of the corner of his eye. He turned, and what he saw was incredible. A small penguin was standing on the sidewalk in front of their house. Penny? Jack said. Oh! Cried Annie. Oh! She dashed off the porch. Jack ran after Annie. They both knelt down beside the little penguin. What are you doing here? Annie asked. Jack picked Penny up, and he and Dani stroked the penguin's downy head. Hey, what's happening, Penny? He said. Why are you here? Peep. The tea house, said Annie. It must be back. Hey, guys! Jack and Dani's dad called from behind the screen door of their porch. Annie quickly jumped in front of Jack to hide the little penguin. What is it, Dad? She said. I just made some fresh lemonade, their dad said. Thanks, Annie said. We'll have some as soon as we come back. We're heading into the woods for a few minutes, said Jack. Okay, it'll be in the fridge, their dad said. Thanks, said Jack. See you later. Let's go, said Annie. Holding Penny in his arms, Jack hurried with Annie down the sidewalk. Did you come here with Teddy and Kathleen? He asked the penguin. Peep. Is that yes or no? Asked Jack. Peep. Yes, Jack said. No, said Annie at the same time. I guess we'll soon find out, said Jack. Jack and Dani crossed the quiet street and headed into the Frog Creek woods. As they hurried through the dappled light, the air smelled of summer. Squirrels scurried up trees. Crows cawed to one another. When Jack and Dani came to the tallest oak, they stopped. The tree house was nestled in the branches near the top. A long rope ladder dangled down to the ground. Teddy! Kathleen! Shouted Annie. There was no answer. Peep! So you came here all by yourself? Jack said to Penny. Is something wrong in Camelot? Are Teddy and Kathleen okay? What about Morgan and Merlin? Let's go, said Annie. She started up the rope ladder. Still holding the little penguin, Jack awkwardly climbed after her. "Oh, wow," said Annie when she reached the tree house. "Oh, wow what?" asked Jack. He hoisted Penny into the tree house and climbed in after her. Then he also whispered, "Oh, wow." An old man with a long white beard, a pointed hat covered in stars, and a red cloak stood in a shadowy corner. "Merlin," breathed Dani. "I see Penny found you," the master magician of Camelot said in his velvety voice. The little penguin waddled to Merlin and stood beside him. "Yes," said Jack. "She came right up to our house." "Is something wrong in Camelot?" asked Annie. "No, all is fine," said Merlin. "Your friends are well. I just decided I wanted to visit you myself." "Cool," said Jack shyly. Merlin had never come to Frog Creek all by himself. "Let me tell you what is on my mind," said Merlin. "I have been thinking very deep thoughts, pondering questions that wise men and women have pondered through the ages." "Pondering?" asked Annie. "Ponder means to think carefully about a subject," Jack said. "Right?" he asked Merlin. "Exactly," said Merlin. "I have been pondering questions about life. For instance, I have been wondering about the idea of greatness. What are the secrets of greatness? What makes a person truly great?" "That is a good question," said Jack. "I cannot answer it by myself, as I do not live in your world, the world of time and mortals," said Merlin. "So, on each of your next 4 missions, you will meet someone who will help you learn a true secret of greatness." "That sounds like fun," said Annie. "I hope it will be," said Merlin. "To begin, how would you like to meet someone called Alexander the Great?" "Oh man, I've heard of him," said Jack. "I haven't," said Annie. "But he sounds, well, great." Merlin smiled. "Can I ask a question?" Jack said. "Of course," said Merlin. "To be practical, how will we know when we've found a secret of greatness?" Jack asked. "I pondered that as well," said Merlin. "I have brought something magical to help you." The magician reached into his cloak and pulled out a small gold ring. "I call this the Ring of Truth." "The Ring of Truth," Annie repeated. "I have cast a spell on the ring," said Merlin. "Wear it on your journeys. When you discover a true secret of greatness, the ring will glow." "May I wear it?" Annie asked Merlin. He nodded. Annie held out her hand, and the magician slipped the gold band onto her finger. "I have brought another bit of magic as well," said Merlin. He reached into his cloak again, and this time he pulled out a tiny glass bottle. Silver mist swirled inside of it. "Mist gathered at first light on the first day of the new moon on the Isle of Avalon," said Merlin. "Wow," said Annie. "The magical mist will allow you to experience greatness in yourselves," said Merlin. "When you need help, make a wish to have an extraordinary talent. Then breathe in the scent of the mist, and for 1 hour that talent will be yours. The magic will work only once on each journey." "Thanks," said Jack. He took the bottle from Merlin and put it into his backpack. "And finally, Morgan asked me to give you a research book." The magician reached into his cloak for the 3rd time and pulled out a book. Ancient Macedonia. I've never heard of Macedonia, said Jack. It is the kingdom where Alexander was born, said Merlin. The ancient Macedonians are fierce and warlike, so travel cautiously. Fierce? Warlike? Jack wanted to hear more. Merlin picked Penny up and raised his hand in farewell. Go now, he said. Good luck. Bye, Merlin. Bye, Penny, said Dani. Peep. Wait, began Jack. But before Jack asked another question, Merlin and Penny vanished. Let's go, said Dani. She pointed at the cover of the book. I wish we could go there, she said. The wind started to blow. The tree house started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. Keep walking. Jack and Dani were wearing tunics with soft belts and lace-up sandals. A cloth bag had replaced Jack's backpack. He looked into the bag and saw his notebook, his pencil, and the bottle with the magic mist from the Isle of Avalon. We wore clothes like these when we went to Pompeii, said Dani. Yeah, and when we went to the Greek Olympic Games, said Jack. When you went to the games, said Dani. They didn't let girls in, remember? Oh, right, said Jack. You nearly caused a riot when you tried to sneak in. It wasn't my fault, said Dani. Jack and Dani looked out the window together. The air felt dry and hot. The sun was directly overhead in a cloudless sky. The tree house was low to the ground, tucked into the spreading branches of an olive tree. Donkeys and horses ambled up a winding dirt road. This looks like a quiet, sleepy place, said Dani. Not fierce or warlike at all. I wondered what Merlin meant, said Jack. He opened their book to the first page and read aloud. More than 2,300 years ago, Macedonia was a kingdom north of Greece. It was ruled by King Philip II, the father of Alexander the Great. The brilliant and ferocious king was known far and wide for his military skills. Ferocious king, Jack repeated. Well, I guess that fits. Don't worry, we have magic that gives us a great talent, said Dani. So we can wish to have military skills too. I can't picture us having military skills, said Jack. Come on, let's go look for Alexander the Great, said Dani. She started down the rope ladder. Jack packed up the book and followed her. Several men on donkeys were riding by on the dirt road. Dani started to call out to them. Don't, Jack whispered, stopping her. People might ask us questions we can't answer. But I only wanted to ask them where Alexander the Great lives, said Dani. Let's just try to blend in first, said Jack, until we know our way around. Dani sighed, but she kept quiet as she and Jack followed the donkeys up the dusty road. They passed rocky meadows dotted with cows and small farmhouses with tiled roofs, chickens, and vineyards. They saw a shepherd tending sheep, a goat herder herding goats, and a farmer with a plow pulled by an ox. Can we ask someone now? Dani said. Let's wait, said Jack. We don't want to draw attention to ourselves unless we have to. They kept walking. Soon they rounded some tall rocks. Beyond a stone wall was a huge field. Thousands of warriors were marching. Yikes, said Dani. She and Jack stopped and stared at the warriors. That must be the king's army, said Jack. The foot soldiers wore armor and helmets with tall crests. In one hand, each man carried an oval shield. In the other hand, each held a long pointed spear. Behind the foot soldiers were rows of soldiers on horses. "They are just practicing, right?" said Annie. "I hope so," said Jack. "I don't see any enemies." He pulled out the research book and found a chapter called The King's Army. He read aloud. At the time of King Philip II, Macedonia was threatened on all sides by frontier tribes as well as the Persian army. King Philip II drilled his men night and day until his army became the best fighting machine in the known world. Jack looked at the soldiers again. They marched to the right and then the left. The front row of soldiers pointed their spears forward. The other rows pointed their spears up in the air. All the men moved in perfect unison, their helmets, shields, and spears flashing in the sunlight. "They do look like a fighting machine," said Annie. Jack thought they looked more like a monstrous insect with thousands of legs and spikes sticking out of its body. He shivered. "Let's get away from this place," he said. Jack and Annie headed farther up the dusty road. Finally, beyond a grove of olive trees, they came to a walled town. Above the town, a white mansion sat on a hilltop. "Maybe that's where King Philip II of Macedonia and Alexander the Great live," said Annie, pointing at the mansion. Jack and Dani walked through the town gate and headed toward the market square. On the street leading to the square, a group of boys were sword fighting with sticks. "Hello," Annie called. "Don't," said Jack. It was too late. The boys stopped fighting and stared at them. "Does King Philip of Macedonia live on that hill?" Annie asked, pointing to the columned house. The boys scowled at Annie. Jack grabbed Annie's arm and pulled her along. "Keep walking," he said under his breath. "Turn right." "Thanks anyway," Annie called. She and Jack kept going. Turned right at the next corner. "They weren't very friendly," said Annie. "No kidding," said Jack. "Listen, do not draw attention to yourself. These are fierce and warlike people with a ferocious king." "They were just kids," Annie protested. "Doesn't matter. Keep your head down. Act cool," said Jack. "I am cool," said Annie. "You act cool." Jack and Dani walked toward the bright market square, which was filled with carts and tents. Bordering the square was a covered walkway. "Want to walk over there so we can be in the shade?" said Jack, pointing. The hot sunlight was starting to get to him. "Sure," said Annie. They headed over to the covered walkway. It was lined with shops where men made and sold pottery, jewelry, and weapons. Jack stopped to watch some blacksmiths. "I wondered what they're making," he said. One of the blacksmiths used tongs to lift a piece of red-hot metal from a fire. Another hammered the metal into a curved shape. "Whoa, it's a sword," said Jack. He pulled out his notebook and pencil. He opened the notebook and wrote, "Sword makers heat iron. Hammer with..." Before Jack could finish his thought, Annie poked him. "Watch it, you're drawing attention to yourself," she whispered. "What?" Jack looked up. The blacksmiths were glaring at him. "Maybe they think you're stealing military secrets," said Annie. "Uh-oh," said Jack. "Let's go." Clutching his notebook, he hurried down the covered walkway. Annie followed him. Jack looked over her shoulder. "They're following." "That way," said Annie. She grabbed Jack's arm and pulled him back into the crowded sunlit square. The two of them walked faster and faster, weaving around food stalls that sold stuffed grape leaves, eggs, fish, cheese, and bread. Annie glanced back. "They're still searching for us." The blacksmiths were standing in the crowd, looking around. "We've got to hide," Jack said. "Where?" said Annie. "I don't know. Duck down," said Jack. Ducking their heads, they passed a group of teenage boys gathered under a canopy. The boys were listening quietly to a man with a curly beard. Here, said Jack. He pulled Annie under the canopy, and they stood with the group. The boys were all taking notes on wooden tablets covered with wax. They used pieces of bone to carve words into the wax. "Act like you're a student," Jack whispered to Annie. As the teacher lectured to the group, Jack pretended to take notes in his notebook. "As you all know, the Earth is the center of the universe," the man said in an easy, calm voice. "He's wrong," Annie whispered to Jack. "Shh," Jack whispered. "In ancient times, everyone thought that." He glanced out at the square and saw the blacksmiths passing by. When they were out of sight, he whispered to Annie, "Let's go, quick, before they come back." Annie didn't budge. She was listening carefully to the teacher. "The sun and planets revolve around the Earth," the man said. "That's totally wrong," Annie whispered to Jack. "Who cares?" said Jack. "We have to go. But we can't let him teach something wrong," said Annie. "Forget it," said Jack. Before Jack could finish, Annie raised her hand. "Excuse me," she called out. "The Earth is not the center of the universe."